are magnificent.
Good morning, Colonel, sir. Shine bright today. I hear down at the village, prices is picking up, and it's a big year for cotton.
Whitkin?
You didn't waste much time.
Listen, there's a small fortune in there. Help yourself.
You're a vulture, Corso. I'm a vulture.
Who isn't in our business?
You'd stoop to anything.
For Quixote Baibara? You bet I would.
Unscrupulous. Thoroughly unscrupulous.
Happy hunting.
This is Colonel Braxton Beauregard Burlique the Fifth, adventurer, treasure hunter, swashbuckler extraordinaire, at your service, madam. Well, tonight's my talk's gonna be, and this is one I've wanted to do since Military Review put this story out October 19th of last year, 2021. He lays it out about this Campaigne decal fraud. And I'm going to cover his part one of this. I think it's an absolutely fascinating story. And some critics have said, well, you know, this was years ago and it's old news. But you know what? There's a lot of people that are not aware of this story. And I had heard talk about it, but I have to tell you, I'm not one over the years that I'm watching these forums and I'm on top of all this. I'll be honest with you, and I'll talk about this in detail. Most of my research has been that I would go to the Militaria shows, the big ones, SOS, the Max Show, and occasionally one, you know, either down south or out west, you know, California, that sort of thing. If I'm out there for some business, you know, I'll try to work at about the same time. But anyway, this is a story. He lays it out. I love how he lays this out. He talks. He identifies all the players. But what I was going to say is, every year I would go to the shows, and I'll be honest with you, I would buy all the books. I would buy, if there was a new book that came out, I would be buying it. I bought all of the volumes that HICKS put out, 2 of them, I believe. That other boy, that Ken whatever, he talks about these boys. I bought his book, and hell, the son of a bitch even autographed it, inscribed it, you know, personal inscription to the old colonel. And you know, he was a damn liar and a thief. And I'll give my commentary here, but I love how the boy lays it out, and I'm going to start the video, and I'll stop it when I feel I need to put a comment.
Welcome to another episode of Military Review. Yes, today we're looking at this Campaigne decal. Part 1, a conspiracy to defraud. You might have heard it as the Campaigne, the Scampagne, the HICKS bricks decals, a variety of different things, but we're going to look into it today.
HICKS bricks, I like that.
Theme to put behind our video, and I couldn't think of almost anything better, than 19th century villain scheming. Before we get into the video, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's joined the Patreon, is helping clean up.
Look at that, the blondie chair. Well, Whitman had that on his damn show.
Your donations are very, very helpful to the 3,500 subscribers. I never thought we'd actually be here. To see 3,500 people that actually want to listen and actually change the hobby is amazing. because it all is all about people power.
Well, congratulations,
So
son.
thank you.
I'm happy with my 130
The
subscribers.
rare Blondie Chair Award should be given out to all you guys for making a big effort in changing the way we think about this hobby and the way people go about dealing with dealers, dealing with items, finding out what is right and wrong. So again, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank all of you, and I really look forward to going forward on this sort of journey together.
Oh, and this fair use disclaimer goes for me too.
Like to say, like
And
always,
I'm glad to
not
let
like
him
this,
know that that goes for me
videos
too.
are used under their feet. Let's go over the conspirators. Eric
Let's.
Dolan, person who owned a body repair shop and was very good at spray painting and decaling cars. Kelly Hicks, the writer.
This son of a
of SS
bitch.
Steel.
And that son of a
And
bitch.
Ken, whose last name I won't butcher, but the writer of combat helmets, somebody who might be used to push the agenda, put the unmanned books, give it
But-
validity, give it life. So these are the
But he's right. But, okay. This guy, I have to tell you, I've never heard of him. I never really heard of him at all, to be honest with you. Hicks was like the shit. I mean, he was the bomb. He was like the guy who was considered the top dog in these helmets. I bought both his books. Hell, I met him, and I'm really disappointed. As you know, this story unravels over this series parts. Hicks, you don't have my respect, son. I feel that you were, if not in on it from the beginning, I feel you were complicit in it later. But I'll let the boy explain it. And this guy here, I bought this damn book. That son of a bitch even inscribed it to me. And you see, look, I'm stuck with these books. I'll talk about, later episode what I feel that Hicks and this other guy should do about the poor bastards like myself who bought their book of fakes. And those books weren't cheap, son. Any of these books like that, they're close to $100. I can't remember exactly what I paid, but you know these books are not cheap. But anyway, Hicks, he wrote a couple books. This boy wrote a book. Hicks is a big-time dealer, has a website, and he has represented himself as the grand poobah of these SS helmets. And, as we go through the boys, his scam series, he did an A1 job on this. I'm just kind of adding my 2 cents worth. Even this Hicks even had the gall to even show up and do an interview. But anyway, we'll get into that later. So let's continue.
the three big people. The hero of our story, Doug Bueller, one of the biggest SS collectors in the world.
Now, you know what? I had heard of him, and I never met him. He came on the scene like a storm. He was buying all this stuff, and excuse me. He was buying all this stuff, and we'll get into the interview that Military Review did with him. This guy really upset the apple cart for these phony helmet guys. I mean, this guy was really something. I give this guy a lot of credit. He is the hero of the story, and what we find out later in this tale that there are people, as they put it, run you out of the hobby. I would say, you know what? If I were him, I'd say nobody runs me out of anything. Run me out of the hobby. Frankly speaking, fuck you. You're not going to tell me what to do. If I want to collect the German helmets and you're selling the phonies and I expose you, you know what? F you. Screw you, man. I'm gonna ballyhoo it like this boy did and ruin your business. And you know why? Because if you're selling fakes, you should be ruined. You're a thief, deceptive, and it's terrible. It's terrible. And anyway, I'm going to let this continue. I get really, I get worked up on this stuff, as you can tell.
Sold his collection completely after exposing this fraud. He was attacked and forced out by the old guard by a vicious counterattack after...
And I'd say, fuck them. He should have I wouldn't let them tell me what to do.
Exposing this and ruining one of the biggest scams in Militaria. A man of extreme pedigree and brilliance. Destroyed for giving light. It's one of the worst things in this hobby. And the patsy, somebody who could act unknown and sell things on through his website and give give oxygen to the lie and say that he'd seen the helmets in the 70s and 80s, and just people don't understand where they come from. Carl Kiefer, yes, of Summer Vacation Militaria. Let's talk about the summer of 2004, if you can cast your minds back.
Oh, I can.
To Champagne Rune being born. In 2004, Kelly Hicks writes a book called SS Steel, where a new decal, the Champagne Rune, was unearthed after having such a champagne-tinged colour. The rune was supposedly from a factory that never produced SS helmets during the war, that of NS and SE HKP. No matter though, collectors on forums and collectors in guilds solely evaluated these new...
But that's just it. I can tell you this. It turned into a situation where you have these big money dealers at these big shows, and it's like a clique. You feel, you want to be in with the big dogs. Well, these are the guys. They have all the great stuff, the great uniforms, medals, helmets, and, then they're purportedly experts. But the question you have to ask is, how much were some of these people fooled, and how much was intentional? Hicks, well, I have my own theories I'll get into later, but the point he's making is this. A lot of people in the 90s and up through the 2000s, and I think even some up to this day, you looked upon guys like Hicks, these guys who wrote these books, for like James R. Bender Company. I mean, that's a respectable company. I've been buying books from that company for decades. And they write these books for these companies, and they achieve like a rock star status. Like, well, he's the guru of SS helmets. And it got to a point where, if he gave it the nod of approval, then, even though the emperor has no clothes and there's obvious defects, a lot of people would accept it as real. And if it appeared in one of the books, what are you going to think? I mean, this is sort of like you had that, if you looked into the art world, there was a guy who was working with a guy forging paintings, and the guy was the dealer, and he had the painter, and the painter would paint the phony paintings. Then he would even go to the auction houses where some of these paintings, the original works by the artist, was sold, and he would doctor up their catalog. So if you look at it as a reference thing, it would show that piece is genuine. And that's the same theory we have here on these goddamn helmets, that these guys are putting in, oh, that's a real, and they show pictures, and you believe the helmet's real. And what's funny is, I remember since '04, I did see several of these helmets since '04 for sale, and they're saying, oh, yes, it was in so-and-so's book. Now, that was supposed to be a plus. Yeah, that should be gold, that helmet is authentic. But now I realize it was all a big con, and it's a fraud. But anyway, let the boy continue.
New helmets, these new SS decals, things of thousands of dollars. On the word of SS Steel in Kelly Hicks's books. Why? Because people just don't think in this hobby. Don't start to look around the edges, see where the crack.
Well, and you know what? He's right. And I'm guilty of that myself. I thought he was the authority, and anything he said, he ran an authentication service. People, there were people, dealers would send pictures to him, and if he gave the nod, it was good. If not, it was bad. And, this Bueller in his interview talks about that too. But he's right. You accept the word. He's the SS helmet guru, and even if there's some facts